Good morning, dear students of class 8. Welcome to the English online learning class. Today we are going to revise the lesson The Best Christmas Present in the World by Michael Morpurgo. Now, the author found a roll-top desk in a junk shop. Now, the condition of this desk was very bad, but it was very cheap. So he thought that he can buy it and later repair it. And so he purchased it. And he started working on it. He brought it home and started repairing it on Christmas Eve. The night before Christmas is called Christmas Eve. Now, when he was pulling out the drawers in order to repair the desk, he found that the drawers, they were badly damaged by fire and water. The man who had sold this desk had told him that it was very old. It was of 19th century and it was made of oak wood. The last drawer was not opening up, so he had to use lot of force to open it. And when he opened it, he found that there was a secret space. And in this space, there was a small tin box. On the top of the box, there was a sellotape paper and on it was written Jim's last letter, received on January 25th, 1915. And it was to be buried with me when the time comes. So the person who had received the letter had said that this was Jim's last letter and it should be buried with me when I die. Now, inside, when he opened that tin box, he found there was an envelope. It had address written, Mrs. James McPherson, 12 Copper Beeches, Bridport. So this was the name of the person and the address to whom the letter was written. And the date was December 26, 1914. On this date, the letter was written. And now the author opened this letter. Reading a private letter of anyone is not good, but author was very curious and he decided to read the letter. Now, the letter was written by Captain of the English Army. His name was Jim McPherson and he had written to his wife whom he called Connie. That is why the address of the letter had the name Mrs. Jim McPherson. And in this letter, he had described a beautiful, wonderful incident which happened on the battlefield on Christmas Day. Now, the incident was described. At that time, in 1914, English and the German were at war. And the two armies, they were opposite to each other. They were at war in the battleground. Suddenly, in the night, Jim McPherson noticed that somebody was waving a white flag from the enemy side. And he saw the German soldiers were calling out to the English soldiers. And they were wishing Happy Christmas. Some English soldiers also replied back and said, "Same to you." But what was surprising was that the German soldiers were moving towards them. Now, Jim McPherson, who was the captain of the English army, thought it was a trick of the German soldiers to defeat them. But he was mistaken. The German soldiers, they were bringing German wine, they were bringing canned meat. They were not having rifles with them. And they were hugging one another. Now the English soldiers also joined them. The German officer who was in charge of the German soldiers came towards Jim McPherson, who was in charge of the English soldiers, captain of the English army, and they shook hands very warmly. The German officer said that he was from Dusseldorf and he used to play before the war cello in the orchestra, and his name was Hans Wolf. And Jim McPherson also introduced himself. He said before the war he was a school teacher from Dorset. Now Hans Wolf, the German's captain, smiled. He knew Dorset, where Jim McPherson worked before the war. But he said that he had never been to England. He knew English. He knew Dorset also because he has read the writer's book, Thomas Hardy's book, Far from the Madding Crowd. And from this book, he had come to know everything about Dorset. McPherson shared with Hans Wolf the Christmas cake his wife had sent for him. His wife, Connie, Mrs. Jim McPherson. And Hans Wolf said, the marzipan, that is a covering on cake which is made of sugar, egg and almonds. It was the best he had ever tasted. And it was a wonderful Christmas party. Then both the English and the German soldiers, they played football. The German soldiers had brought a football with them. And the soldiers played with each other while McPherson and Hans Wolf, they cheered and they clapped their teams. Hans Wolf also said that world would be much better if problems they were solved by football match instead of war. So through games and sports, relations between the world, between countries can be made more strong. Now that night, the Germans were heard singing a carol, Christmas carols, and the English soldiers also sang carols. So they were exchanging carols for a while. Then everything was silent. Once again, the festival mood was forgotten, and the other day, now they were both on warring terms. This letter, Jim McPherson wrote to his wife, and he said that he will remember these moments all his life. He also said to his wife that war would come to an end soon. And both the German and the English armies, they wanted peace. And he was very sure that he will join his wife once the war is over. Now, having read this letter, the narrator thought that he should give the letter back to whom it belonged. It belonged to whom? Mrs. Jim McPherson. and the address was already written, Bridport, Dorset. So he drove to that place, house number 12. But he found the house was burnt. And when he contacted the neighbor said that Mrs. Macpherson was in the house when it caught fire, and the firemen saved her life. She was 101 years old, and she was in a nursing home. So the author went to the nursing home. There he met the matron, and the matron told the author that Mrs. Macpherson was very confused that day. She had become very old. She's become muddle-headed. And they had to put her in a conservatory. When the author and the nurse went there, Mrs. Macpherson was sitting in a chair. And she did not recognize the author because she had never seen the narrator before. When he called her Connie, her eyes lit up because this was how her husband used to address her, and he gave her the letter. He also told her how he got the letter in the roll-top box. But she was not listening to him, and she caught hold of his hand. Her eyes were filled with tears. Whom did she think? She thought that her husband had returned from the war, and she was very happy because she thought that her husband had returned from the war. Now, she wanted to talk to him, and she also said that she has got the best Christmas present in the world because she had been waiting for her husband all these years. We will stop here, and this is a lesson which we have taken up for revision. It will be coming in your half-yearly exams. So students, revise this lesson properly. Thank you.